Morning, May the 3rd. It is so pretty, y'all. We're almost to Star Wars Day. May the 5th, May the 5th. Anyway, I know, it's nerdy. This is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week, though. Chat about what's going on in the world of weather. Good morning to you. It is a Friday. It is a beautiful, beautiful morning. Here's a live look outside on our Tower Cam network. New Smyrna Beach. The water is relatively calm. I was watching this morning. There were a lot of people out walking, enjoying that beach breeze. It's definitely a day where you want to go outside and enjoy. And it's also kind of fun because it's like a summer's preview of days. We don't really have much in the way of big thunderstorm activity. It's going to be a nice and quiet one, really and truly. Like yesterday, we'll have a little bit of rain. That's all right. It's just the way that it goes. But really and truly, it's a quiet one. All right, let's see what's doing outside on our first warning live Doppler radar. Scanning around, don't really have anything. Couple showers off the shoreline. Not going to bother your morning plans. 70 degrees in Wildwood. It's 71 in Orlando, 70 degrees in New Smyrna Beach, and 67 in Palm Bay. Forecast today, looking gorgeous. Mid-80s around lunchtime. We get into the upper 80s and lower 90s by 3 o'clock this afternoon, and a 10% mention of a sprinkle. That's really, really not a bad one, right? All right, getting ready for the weekend. Let's just plan for some heat, all right? 90 degrees today, 90 tomorrow. By Sunday, we're upping the rain coverage over to 30%. And some models are even saying more. But look at next week, okay? That's disgusting. Next week, 94 on Wednesday, 96 degrees on Thursday. This is the GFS model. Air temperatures, according to the GFS, will be in the triple digits for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week. So models are far worse than the forecast. But again, this is why we make forecasts, because you can only trust models so far. So that's not fun. All right. All right. The reason that I did the extended forecast fairly quickly is because while we are still relatively quiet in the hurricane season, in the severe weather season mode, I wanted to welcome somebody who has become a bit of an interesting name in the world of weather. I know everybody probably knows him. We're going to welcome him in. My friends, welcome Mike Boylan from Mike's Weather Page. Mr. Mike, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. God, I usually watch you right about now, so this is cool to be on your little show here. It's my morning tradition, drinking coffee with you.
All right, I love it. Well, first off, let's just start with what's in the coffee mug. How do you take your coffee? We'll start there.
Oh, strong. I told the story to my dad the other day when I was like a teenager. I remember pulling off at a gas station in Atlanta when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I drank my first cup then in black, and I'm like, I'm going to drink it this way, no cream and sugar. And it was the worst taste you ever experienced as a kid.
Yeah.
I love it. I can't get enough of it.
So well, I wish that I could take it. Wish I could take it straight like that. I need to throw a little creamer in, but nobody ever said I was the manliest of men.
Anyway, yeah, it's my. I've slowed down. I'm about a 2-cup now is all I need. I used to be a 2-pot a day. Now I'm down to 2 cups.
Oh my God! All right, so tell me, how did Mike's Weather Page start? Let's just start there.
Well, yeah, I'm a native. I guess I'm kind of rare. Our kids aren't, rare natives, but I'm a native. And living in Florida in 2004. We had Charlie coming down, and man, as everybody living in Tampa Bay, I was obsessed with like, oh my God, is this thing coming? And I discovered spaghetti models. And I remember one time I found it one day on the internet, and then the next day I couldn't find it. And I'm like, where did I find those spaghetti models? So I decided to make a web page in 2004. And I joked, I called it Mike's Weather Page. I only shared it with friends. It was mainly a spot for me to go to so I could find these models.
Right.
Like, I was learning HTML the same time at USF. So I was, kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone there, and built a web page, and it just kind of grew from there. The first couple of years, I didn't have the domain the first couple of years. It was backdoored on another website that I had.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was mainly just a spot to go. And it's funny, it's kind of the same thing today, 20 years later. I just put links on there, and it's like my little spot to go look at models,
I think it's so interesting because weather, you know, when I got into television weather, the one thing that every manager always told me was weather's the most important thing, period, because it impacts each and every one of us. And I think that you are such a prime example of that as somebody who kind of nerded out and turned it into something where it's like, well, there was a need and I'm going to do it for myself, but maybe we share it with the other people.
Yeah, I'd never dreamed in a million years. I had back, God, I remember one of my first emails from somebody who worked at NASA of all places, shared me a Jetstream link. They're like, "Hey, Mike, will you put this on there?" And
Yeah.
they explained to me then, and I finally just figured out I'm kind of self-taught. Jetstream controls everything. Now you obviously know that, but then I was like, what are they talking about? But over the years, people shared links, and it just kind of, it became like the spot. It's like, and of course, social media came around, and it really changed everything. I think '09 Facebook popped into the scene, and that kind of elevated things to a whole different level.
So all right, so you're very, very active on social media. Everybody asks me, and I have to ask you, because I feel like on the planet, when there's hurricane, I mean, tropics are my thing. They're obviously your thing. And Charlie did it for me too. At least Charlie was my first storm in the television business. So, but I feel like during hurricane season, I am I buzz through my phone's battery quicker than it's ever supposed to be. But I feel like the one person on the planet that probably posts more than me is you. So I have to ask you, does your family feel like they are completely outsiders during hurricane season? Because I know mine does.
Yeah, they're very tolerant. Luckily Julie had worked at Publix for like 37 years now, so she had a real get out of the house job, and it was a little tough with the kids growing up because they're off in the summer. It's great during this time of year they go to school.
Right.
But yeah, they've learned. There's been times when I'll go live at night and kind of force everybody to be quiet, and they used to get mad at me.
Yeah.
Like, we had little, not fights, but like, this is our house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are you telling us to be quiet in our house? And we've had to cancel trips. The standing joke with my crew is every time I mentioned we're going camping, we had a storm pop up. I think that was in 2020.
Right.
So they're like, "Uh-oh, you said the C word." But you have to love weather, right, Eric? I mean, that's I admire what you do. There's a lot of folks in my market. I even love Jim Cantori. I met him and I told him that this guy's up at 4 a.m. every day posting.
Yep.
So it's not a job to him.
Right.
And I think anything you do, it's still kind of a hobby. I think living in Florida, you become tracking storms as a part of your culture. People love it. I don't know what it is. People love hurricane season, not love hurricanes,
Right?
But they love hurricane season in a weird way.
And I feel like if anybody can do any job for a certain amount of time, right? But to do what duty calls during hurricane season, where there's constant funneling data coming in and the need to get that data out, I feel like if you don't have that passion, you'll burn out quicker than a matchstick.
Yeah, and I do see some Mets that just kind of mirror what the NHC says. And I'm sure you're the same way. If I take 12 hours off in the season, I feel like I'm lost. Like, oh my God, I didn't look at the latest GFS, the Euro, the ensembles. I didn't look at trending. I didn't look at hurricane data. Yeah. So you have to you become plugged into the season. Like, it's almost like a sixth sense, I think, where you just kind of know. But when I take off, I feel lost. So you become connected, and you have to. I mean, I feel like I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about if I take time off. People want to know the latest and trends and shifts, and I always compare it to like a soap opera in Florida. Like, people that like a long track hurricane from Africa. Oh my God, that's 10 to 15 days, right? It becomes a story like every day. Like, okay, well, what's the latest? It becomes like a Netflix show.
It does. A telenovela.
It's weird to explain it.
And I think too, coming through the academic realm, I feel like social media has changed messaging, and I feel like there is such this. Years and years and years ago, there was this idea of only issue the forecast that the National Hurricane Center goes with. And listen, I mean, I adore all of those folks down there. I've met them, talked to them, but I feel like, and I think that you are so fantastic at this, I feel like there's a thirst for knowledge because there are so many of us nerds. Some are meteorologists, some are not. But I feel like no matter what any background is, in Florida, everybody has to be at least a little bit of a weather nerd. And just getting the cone is also, and the Hurricane Center folks will yell at me for this saying this, right? But like, I feel like just getting the cone is doing a disservice. But if you can explain and show, hey, this model's trending this way, this model's trending this way, I feel like there's a thirst for that. And I feel like you 100% agree on that.
Well, yeah, and I've experienced it with a lot of storms. I mean, Harvey, the rain totals, nobody was discussing that, but the long range models did. I always, Michael was like the first storm that really excelled the page. And that was because when it was a tropical storm, it was forecast to originally be a tropical storm to hit the panhandle. Like that was the first cone.
Right.
But every single model was showing 9, 20, 30, 40 millibar. And I would just share it, and I'm always cautious. I really don't forecast. People like the possibilities. And that's the number one thing I hear is like, they want to choose themselves. They want to know. And that's all they want to know is they want to know what the models are saying. They'll choose for themselves,
right.
what to believe. But that storm, and NHC just makes small. They don't make knee jerk reactions. But I think sometimes with hurricanes, I mean, like Ian was probably the first time I ever kind of made a forecast because it was trending to the panhandle, and I'll never forget that Sunday morning. Everybody Saturday in Tampa was relieved it was going to the west, and I'm like, well, first off, that's terrible. They don't understand. They react to the emotions of a small shift. And
right.
Every ensemble was still pointing to Southwest Florida. And I'm like, and the GFS that year was so terrible. And I'm like, man, this doesn't look good for South Florida, West Coast. And that's where I think that storm, the media talked about landfall on a Friday. It was going to be weakening, but it was still a major on Wednesday, 2 days earlier. And it turned. So it hit 2 days earlier as a major. And a lot of folks just had that in their heads. It was going to be weakening and it was going to be Friday. And those are messages, challenges that I think we still all have to like. That cone, the cone was correct. The eye fell in that range, but still the 99% of the perception is that center line. And that's who's going to get it,
Yeah.
So that was a tough one. So I think these, like you just mentioned, more than just a cone, explaining to people the rainfall, the inland effects, how big the system is, not comparing one storm to another. And,
right.
Really, it's something we can do online that nobody else can because you have all this time that it's tough for the TV to do that.
Well, and I think that for TV, when we get into wall-to-wall coverage, we have that time, right? But like leading up to it, 7 days out, 5 days out, it's still a fairly siloed thing. And that's, like you said, like that's why I love this venue, because in addition to having as much time as I want, I also can see what people are asking and kind of learn from them. But you're so right. Like I remember Ian, and you're talking about Ian, right? Like for my area, everything you just mentioned, but adding in that flooding like I remember I put out a social post. I was going to lay down the night before it was going to hit, and I'm like, out of everything that we've talked about, I am so worried about the flooding because I don't think people are recognizing the genuine threat this is about to give. It's something, and it's like, as much as the weather information is critical, it's the social science. And I think that that's where, folks like you, folks like me, people that are not like, it's going to be a category 6 and we're all going to die, but rather like looking at the data, putting it out there, sharing, because at the end of the day, the forecast cone is what it is. It's a forecast, but that doesn't demonstrate a higher than average question for forecast or like the confidence doesn't play into that.
Right. Well, you're flooding because I have a friend that works at FDEM, and they told me something that really played out, like you just mentioned. But they were talking about ground saturation levels before Ian were at like 98% for the state, and they were concerned about this flooding. And I find the focus only on the category strength. I use Florence for the example all the time because I get so tired of hearing the word downgraded. And Florence went from a 4 to a 3 to a 2 to a 1. And every time the pom-poms come out on TV, of course, I'm not calling you guys out, obviously, or anybody specific, but basically they love to say downgraded,
Right.
but yet that was a $14 billion category 1 storm. Sandy was a 1, you know. So it doesn't have to be a bad category 4 or 5. And for Florida with the rain, my God, I have friends in Port Orange that woke up to 2 foot of water in their house.
Yeah.
They haven't flooded their whole life, you know, and they went to bed. All the focus was on landfall. Same with Michael. You know, Georgia and Alabama got cotton fields, pecan farmers, you know, they were all hit with a category 3, but
Right.
the focus was only landfall. And I guess that's another beef I try to at least communicate is, you know, friends of mine who live in Arcadia were like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they think landfall. They don't think, oh my God, it's still going to be a hurricane inland. You know?
Well, and like Harvey's the same thing. Like Harvey made landfall in extreme South Texas, looped up, and then stopped over Houston.
Yeah. Oh, it can't rain 50. You know, there's no way it's going to be, you know, 40 inches of rain. And models, most of the time, the models aren't wrong. You know, I mean,
especially if you know, like, and by you posting all of the models and giving that situational awareness, it keys the public into live weather data, you know, from run to run to run. And there are certain people that are like, but it's one model run. And it's like, yeah, but if you're starting to see run to run consistency, model to model consistency, there's something there.
Right. Well, I love your LRC. So I do a lot of hurricane presentations, you know, and I pulled back your graphics from 22, 23, and of course 24. And, you know, I'm fascinated with what you guys do with your Lazaric modeling. Is that what the official name? But the LRC is awesome. And, you know, I'm starting to post these daily posts about hurricanes mimicking, you know, themselves. And it's fascinating. You know, there's so many weird stories. I'm going to do one today that, what was it, the hit, the same date. I think it was Ivan and another one, Sally, maybe. I got to look it up. But it's just weird, these weather, how Mother Nature's repeating herself, you know. And
well, and you pointed out, I saw your post a couple of days ago, and it was like Charlie and Gene. That was a part of the exact same weather pattern in cycling. So real fast, and I've told this story on Coffee Talk, maybe you've heard it, but like the way that I got Wesh to understand and allow me to do this was I had to case study a storm. And in 04, I was working at another TV station with a different number in the corner, but in Central Florida. And let's just say that we did really great. Wesh, it was the opening day of the Olympics. So like by just virtue, they were set up for the Olympics, right? So Charlie did Charlie's thing. But you know, it gave me an opportunity to say, like, let's case study this storm. And so I went through and I showed Charlie time and time again. And Manolfi, my chief, was like, wouldn't there be one more version of Charlie? And so I was like, yeah, whatever the math was. And so I typed in the number, hit enter, and Gene popped right up. And it's like, oh.
Wow.
Didn't even know that. I just typed in, 43 days later or whatever it was, enter Gene. And it's like,
yeah. And what Ian and Nicole did the same thing, 43 days
exact same thing.
Weird,
and I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's, well, you know, the old timers back in the day, you know, they gut feelings are probably science based, but you know, you get to know weather, and you know, you see the clouds brewing, you feel the winds, you know, you just know. I know one thing, when Irma hit, we had this weird heat in the air.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything then, but then we had the same feeling during Ian. And I remember that feeling of like stagnant heat, you know, and I posted it, and a lot of folks said the same thing. They're like, man, it does feel weird. Like, you know, don't know if that was the high pressure over us that was allowing this thing to ventilate, whatever, you know, but both storms rapidly intensified, and our areas were kind of, so yeah, it's weird how reading weather in different ways, you know, and looking now at science.
The
and
more
this season
learn.
coming up, I mean, I mean, I know you want to, I've never seen so many forecasts for 21 plus storms. So this is an interesting year.
Yeah. So, and, you know, if you, so interestingly enough, so this is my forecast, 16 to 20 named storms. So looking at the analogs, what we found was that going from an El Nino of strength it was to a La Nina, interestingly enough, the storm numbers for those seasons were a little lower than even what kind of the atmosphere would have given. So it's I'm curious to see what will happen. My big takeaway on my numbers is that the percentage of storms that go from a tropical storm to a hurricane or major hurricane are a little greater than normal. So that was our takeaway when we put our forecast together.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I've looked at the same El Nino data, and I was thinking the same thing. The strong years that we had El Nino, the first year after La Nina didn't seem as active as maybe the second year La Nina.
Correct.
Which was 2020. 19 was our most recent year, I believe, La Nina switchover. And 2020 obviously was huge.
Right.
And then the third year La Nina, all the forecasts were, oh my God, it's going to be the same. But then they're like, well, maybe third year, so it'll be, the water temperature thing's hot, I don't know. I mean, I guess people say it only takes one. Obviously last year, Idalia, talking to folks in Taylor County, obviously that they think it was a busy year.
Right.
Everybody else in the country thinks the season was, a bust, but we don't have 21 storms that hit the United States. That's the thing. It's like names don't equate to impacts, and
right.
I guess that's the one hype that I'm trying to stay away from is, and then old time Floridians, we hear it every year.
Well, and you mentioned that. It's so interesting. When I was younger in my career, I remember everybody would say, when we'd come out and say Colorado State's calling for an above average year, and they'd be like, the old timers, y'all never say it's going to be a quiet year. And we have over time. But I do think, just given the scenario, whether it's more situational awareness, naming more systems, or water temperature, whatever it is, the multi-decadal cycle that Chris Lancy has been so public about, kind of the research, whatever it is, do I think that we'll ever have a below average season? Sure. Do I think it's going to be super below average ever? Probably not. I mean, we know more than we did 50 years ago. We see more than we did 50 years ago.
I agree. Well, yeah, right. I think we got satellites, we got hurricane hunters.
Right.
They're naming subtropical storms now. They did not, used to do that. So, and like last year, I always use the example of Fort Lauderdale had 25 inches in 24 hours. I mean, it doesn't have to be any, category, like you said, 6 to create hell. I mean,
well, and that was a part of a pattern that yielded Lee, and just because of Lee's timing stayed off the shoreline, but that was a part of the pattern that we thought was going to hit. So like, you talk about that, it's interesting. When did Hurricane Ian hit? Let me just, do we remember like the date? Hurricane
it was September.
I'm just looking. The reason I'm looking is because, okay, so it was September. So that was 2022. I'm just going back to my okay, it was September 23rd to September 30th. This is my graphic for that part of the weather pattern, okay? And I've got late September highlighted. And the late July version, I remember I put out a tweet in late July, and I was like, there was an upper low in the Gulf, and I put this tweet out saying, when this cycles back around in late September, we're going to have to watch. So we were in hurricane coverage. Somebody went back and grabbed that tweet, Mike, and posted it back. And it was like, Burris, 2 months ago. It's like, oh, man, that's crazy. Yeah. So I only say this. No, go ahead.
Like looking back at, the La Nina years, it's fascinating to see how the Caribbean is absolutely nothing going on. But yet we still had Michael. We still had Idalia. That's where I try to caution people, like, that doesn't mean that we're in this strong wind shear that storms still can't develop, and they find other ways. Like you said, Lee was kind of like Dorian, Andrew. I think Gina Francis were all El Nino years. They all find a way around that shear.
Right.
And it's fascinating how history repeats itself. And I remember last year I used 18 as an example, and I'm like, if we were to get something, from what 18 yielded, but there was Idalia popped up, right there off the Yucatan. So, I mean, it's
the Dr. Ian Malcolm, life will find a way.
Yeah.
So I'm interested. This is the part of the pattern I'm most interested in this year. The end of May, there are some subtle hints. End of May. This is the part of the pattern that I will be particularly interested in watching. And I know you will as well. We'll see. Right. This is a complex part of the pattern, because it kept wanting to be this like area of low pressure up in the northern Gulf, and then it would always die, and then this other low would form, and that was where like Southwest Florida over the winter had hurricane force gusts. If I remember, this was the Lauderdale tornado part of the pattern? You know, you remember a couple months ago?
Oh yeah, I think I went down there and chased it. It was like a hurricane. It sounded the howl of that wind.
Yeah.
It was like the locals down there were like couldn't believe it. You know.
Yeah. All right, let's get some questions here. A lot of people are talking about how the two nerds together are making their hearts full, and that's great. Who has questions though for our guest today? Let's see here. Oh, everybody's saying that I may have had an extra cup of coffee because I'm excited to chat with you and having fun together.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us or for anybody while we're waiting for them?
No, I think just going back to how I found you. 8 o'clock. I actually look forward to listening to you. I love what you do. I mean, I'm really good friends with Dennis Phillips over here. He kind of does the same thing. I helped him back before even Facebook. He was doing a live stream. So this type of weather, I love the interaction, and what it does. And I noticed you stream on X now, and I'm on YouTube. So it's cool that people listen, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. And I always tell people the funniest stories. Like toward the end of I rant for an hour, and I'll mention something out of the blue the last 5 minutes about Sarah, let's say, and then a month later go by and I'll meet this lady, let's say, and she'll be like, "Oh, hey, Sarah, I heard you did good on your math test," or like it's cool that this medium is out there and people listen to every word, and I think that's important for us to know that people do listen and take what we have to say to heart. We got a cool platform here.
I agree. And I think that with that, there's a great responsibility. And I know I feel it, like even when I'm tired or something, it's like, I know that that people have come to depend on, and I know you feel the same way. Like people have come to depend on us for information. So when you wake up and you're sick or you're tired, or like if I'm in the middle of 12 on, 12 off hurricane coverage and I just do not want to do a darn thing anymore, I still feel like I have to do it because you know that you've earned that trust. And I always say, like, it's one thing to earn trust, but it's another to keep that trust.
Trust is huge. I met your team at the Florida, had a big meteorology summit last week, and met a few of your fellow colleagues there. I sat at their table actually. But trust is a huge word, and consistency and trust is what I found, people want without the hype. And it takes time to build that, and it's tough. It's a tough world because it's so easy to get clicks and likes and post. I mean, I did it when I was starting out. I would post that one Cat 5 GFS run in Tampa, and it was an addiction. Oh my God, it went like wildfire on the internet.
Yep.
And there's still people that do that, and TikTok is really bad about that right now. I mean, there was that anomaly in the Vintusky app that millions of people thought there was a 100-foot tidal wave coming up. You know? But they believe anything. And we're in a world that anybody, whatever's on the internet must be true. So
no,
I feel bad for the National Weather Service and Hurricane Center because they're fighting people like me, basically, that can have a voice. So
I think, though, there's a difference between saying, like, there's that girl that said, like, Category 6 is heading to Florida and will kill you all. Like, there's a difference between that and sharing data. Now, if you were to share one model, one run with no context, there's a different thing. And interestingly, I feel like there was a day when there was a hurricane coming, and I was talking about hypers, and a bunch of people thought I was trying to out you, and I'm like, no. Like, there was one dude that was showing one run of one model, and I had a bunch of people thought I was ripping you apart that like ripped me apart. I'm like, whoa, slow down.
I love it. Well, you reached out, and I respect that because, you didn't know who I was, and I mean, I wouldn't care. Mike's who's this guy, But yeah, I always remember that because you wrote out right away, and I'm like, that's fine. I mean, my feelings don't get hurt, It
also wasn't him, by the way, Freds.
Hey, whatever, it's fine.
It was the same group of people
now.
that are.
I mean, I have to get a check now. Dennis has got my cell phone, so every now and then he'll text me like, Mike, like, really? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have posted that, But
we're human. We're all human. But this brings me to my next question. So Beth is asking, and I feel like this is, if I remember, this is related. How did you get the drunk donkey name? This is related to this, isn't it?
Oh my God! Well, a fellow Met up in the Carolinas, they're in Florence, called me out on TV, and I was doing my show like you, and all of a sudden people started typing, "Hey, you got to go over to this website. They just called you out on TV," and
Yeah.
that's what they called me, and because they didn't, I was talking Florence, and I guess they didn't like that I was getting more views than they were in their local market.
Right.
I'm in Florida, and so basically they called me out. Some dude named Mike, and rest is history. So the next day I made a shirt and sold like thousands of them. It was awesome.
Hey man, have you now question and feel free not to answer. I'm
Yeah.
Have you turned this into like your work? Like, do you?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Totally. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not embarrassed by it at all. I mean, I'm 50 now. I mean, I still don't know what I want to do. That's my joke. But I went to USF, real marketing degree. I worked in the computer world and did websites and always found a way. I'm kind of an entrepreneur, and since, like I mentioned, Julie worked at public side, we had kids like you do, and it worked out. I work at home, and just up to 3 years ago, I pretty much niched everything and just do this.
Awesome.
And again, it's a 5 o'clock to midnight job sometimes. And, I'm doing a lot more presentations and doing expos and got some great sponsors on the website I do work for. So, luckily there's been opportunities to help, and, blessed with the state of Florida, doing more with Kevin Guthrie and them. So, it's a cool niche. And, I'm just riding it. Like Jimmy Buffett said, I love my summer job. So
listen, I may have to try and learn from you and one day.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of them say. I mean, there's opportunities. There's a lot of guys that do a lot better online than I do with YouTube. YouTube's an animal right there. And but yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say it. I think I've used my marketing degree to figure it out. And there's a lot of little ways to pull in, a little here, a little there,
Husband, father, like, trying to do good in the community. That's that. At the end of the day, nobody's perfect, but as long as we're trying to do the good things, then there is what it is.
You get the haters. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I will admit, feelings get hurt a lot in this business. Yeah. I'm sure there's always people throwing darts at you, and it's just you develop thicker skin over time.
Yeah.
But it still kind of sucks. You like Bobby Deskin's over here, a friend of mine now, and he said something the other day about post and ghost, and I didn't know what he meant. And then it's like, well, that makes sense. That's you post and go away, because sometimes it's not worth reading the comment.
It's
but
true.
You feel like you want to read the comments, but then you start to see the debate, and I'm like, oh, do I really want to,
Truth.
It sucks. I mean, it's a small percentage,
Bobby's right. I've never met him. I'm very familiar with his work, but he's right. Especially during like the long range forecasting, there's a lot of people that love to just rip me apart. Oh, that's not okay. All right. Well, we can have a debate about that when you want to be respectful, but in the meantime, we're not going to do this,
Well, I do find it fascinating how mad anger people get sometimes about weather.
Right?
Like really? Like not just to me, but like if a forecast is wrong, or your neighbor got the rain and you didn't. I mean, God, it's just weather. I mean,
I'm not hitting on your spouse, man. Like we're doing the best we can. A lot of people, by the way, are saying that you and I should go storm chasing together. Boy, that would be a time.
I pulled up next to. I was looking at pictures yesterday, and Nicole and Fox pulled up next to me in their big old dually, and I always laugh because I'm a one man band, and they got a whole production crew out there with satellites and lights, and then I'm like, oh my God, it felt like the little dog here,
So there's a joke about that. So our weather truck is built by the same company that built theirs.
Oh, I've seen yours. It's amazing. Yeah.
So, but we were out on there was a tornado that touched down near Ocala. This is so we're up there. I'm about to go live. It's like the first time we've taken our weather truck out, and that thing shows up, and it's like, you want to talk about emasculating me real quick?
I did. I was live too. It was the funniest thing, man. I'll never forget. It was like, oh man, it's like the big dogs are here,
So funny.
Brian Tittle says,
Brian is I bet.
Aaron Burnett reached out to me, and I was on top of CNN, and I was kind of like snuckering. I'm like, yeah, who's on TV now?
Hey, listen. At the end of the day, I if there's one thing I've learned, and maybe your wife, which like my wife struggles with that thick skin thing, and I'm sure your wife probably does too. But like I've just learned, opinions are like armpits. Everybody has them. They stink, and I don't care what they look like. You know.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, and this is in life, I think it has to bother you if you care, right? I mean, and I think to be successful, you have to care. And unfortunately, then you care. Like, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. If
Right.
your responsibility and, making sure that you're always putting out a good, consistent product. And that success, I think, is just part of it. But you do have an army, and you just hope over time that becomes larger,
Yeah.
than the minority. And a lot of people that's their right. And I used to be band happy, and but I don't have a problem with it. Everybody's got an opinion, and everybody thinks differently. And I think as I've gotten older and maybe matured a little bit, I've just learned not everybody thinks the same way.
Yep.
That's not even with weather. So I'm okay with that. Like I'm trying to be, my youngest has got Downs, and I've, that really changed a lot, I think, of me growing up.
Yeah.
And just seeing everybody looks at things different. You can't really, hate on somebody because they don't think your way. And I mean, that's helped me a lot deal with it,
Wisdom is something that I think we pick up with age, right? And youth is always wasted on the young. And so, all right, how can people find you online and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, well, just all the platforms. I'm trying to expand everything. Facebook's obviously number one. X is really growing over there. YouTube close third, and then I do Instagram also. So pretty much everywhere.
You're not dancing on TikTok, are you?
I tried. Trust me, it didn't work.
I refuse to do that myself.
I've done it. I really thought I was funny, but I'm not.
That's okay. Listen, my wife has told me very clearly I'm not funny, so I got you.
Yeah. I just make my daughters cringe, But I will say that platform is unbelievable. Like I'll get 100,000 views sometimes in a day on something, and I don't get that engagement anywhere else. So there are people that have told me, countless people, and that's the one thing I explained to this weather thing I did last week at FDEM was everybody's gets their weather differently. And the amount of people that told me they only get it on TikTok, for example, is like, oh my God, it's like, it's scary almost.
Yeah.
So, I just try to be consistent there. The people like the quick 1 minute little videos.
Yeah. That's one of my goals is to try and figure out ways to do TikTok without dancing around like a goober because it's just not going to look good. All right, people, any other questions? Any other questions at all? Let's see here. Ask Mike to put on his peanut hat. What?
Oh yeah. See, I got a real fan. This is my TikTok hat.
Oh, dear God.
So look, I started this thing called Weather in a Nutshell.
Oh my God, I love it.
They're nuts. It's Weather in a Nutshell.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, so I got to get going on that pretty soon. And I guess too, I've learned is you have to be a little clickbaitish, and I hate that, but it does work, and that's a fine line on TikTok or any medium. If you just put a picture up, weather update, nobody's going to watch it. But if you say like Florida hurricane coming ? My God, it sucks because that is the only thing that people do correctly call out is the clickbait. But to get people to watch, you got to find different tricks nowadays. Otherwise, the algorithm ain't going to work. So that's my tricky thing over there is how to get the engagement without hyping, because
I think that alone, to anybody that wants to hate on you or me or any of what we're doing as trying to get information out, I would go further and blame the social media platforms for literally algorithming us to the point where, right? Because if you refuse to do it, so it's walking this fine line that it's possible, but it's not an easy line to walk.
Right. Yeah. And it does work. I've done experiments just for fun, nobody cares about it's a blue sky out there, so and and then you get lost in the shuffle of all the other dancing videos. So,
God.
yeah.
All right.
Even like
Katie's asking, what's your favorite forecast models and why?
It's funny. It changes every year for me. Like Euro is obviously the king for most. I love the H Wharf, which is a mesoscale model for, or a hurricane model for intensity. I found that to be really good. So what I do is over the year, you start to see which ones are performing better than others.
Yeah.
And you kind of lean on those. And, obviously ensembles have become, Mike Clay over here in Tampa pointed this out years ago, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but ensembles are huge, and you show them all the time too. So Euro number one, I actually think the Icon is an amazing German model.
Yep.
It seems like it sniffs out storms good. Even the Canadians got more consistent. GFS is my least favorite anymore.
Yep.
And UK is always in the middle of the run, but you just kind of take a blend of them all, and ensembles are very important. I talk about them, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
Those can spot trends quick, and so yeah, it's a blend of them all. It's really hard to pick one. And the one comment I get all the time is Windy must be a very popular app. Everybody uses Windy, but it defaults to the Euro. So
right.
I get that comment all the time. Windy predicted it. Well, actually, it was the Euro.
Right. Yeah.
So I always make sure people know that's the Euro.
So everybody says, you should take me storm chasing. I'll take you flying, just not at the same time.
I'll take you fly. Yeah, that's awesome. Probably more. I'd be more scared flying. I don't know why. Little planes.
As long as there's not a hurricane, Mike, we can go flying. We'll be good to go.
Yeah. I'm gonna up the storm chasing this year, though. In fact, today I'm mounting my Starlink on the back. I saw a tornado chaser. Did you see the one that was in the middle? Elon even shared it, but he was underneath that tornado with his Starlink on the roof. So I got a cool little mount. My project today is to get my Starlink mounted above my tailgate.
That's all. You're doing the RV plan for mobile access?
No, this guy had the actual one. I guess the signal. There's so many towers right now that even the standard one supposedly picks up flat. So. Yeah, I'm gonna try it.
I'll have to. We've got Starlink for the weather lab, but because we're on the RV plan, it deprioritizes the bandwidth. So sometimes it's a little You'll have to let me know how that works for you. I might have to change the plan for Wesh's Starlink there.
Well, I got stranded during Ian. It was a scare. I tell you, one of the eeriest feelings for me was, I blew my truck up. We were on our way home. The joke was my navigator buddy Phil. We couldn't find any roads that would get us out of Dodge, and we wanted to go home. And we went on a road called North River Road. I'll never forget. And it was basically a river from tree to tree. We're using a floodlight to see the road. It was that bad. It was pitch black, and truck blew up, parked in the middle of the road. Water's rising. He got hitchhiked out of there, and I'm stranded. And I had a satellite phone, and I had to stand on the truck and hold it, and I barely got a signal, and I was able to let my wife know I was okay. So the Starlink is great because, man, I mean, and it's beautiful sky after a hurricane. It was beautiful, right? But there's no cell phone towers. Right. So the signal is going to be phenomenal right after a storm.
Yeah, it's a game changer for sure. It's a game changer. Listen, Mike, keep up the great work. Thank you, buddy. And I'm sure we'll be chatting this hurricane season.
Yeah, I'm always popping in there for sure.
Very good. Thank you.
I saw water temperatures was 85 in Clearwater, so I'm going to go post an 85 water temp and probably get some debate on that. But
it is what it is.
My magic number is 88. We were in the water last week. I was freezing at 78, so that's a post for me. I can jump in the Gulf now.
Yeah, I keep my pool. My pool is anywhere from 87 to 90. I am not getting in any. I'm just a wimp, and I own that.
88's our magic number.
I feel you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Go back, enjoy the rest of your day, and let us know about the Starlink.
All right, buddy. See you.
Thank you, man. Hey, Mike from Mike's Weather Page. Good dude. We chat offline. I look forward to hopefully not having to have too many impactful chats this year, so to speak. So we'll see how the hurricane season rolls. But anyway, thank you all for hanging out for that. It's funny. I feel like in the world of social media, there are going to be folks that are good, folks that are bad. There are going to be folks that are whatever. But you've got to hand it to Mike. He does the best he can to know that he, didn't get formal education, but also know that he's picked it up by being a nerd. And, he shares all the information he can, and hey, he's developed quite an audience. So I appreciate it. We've always had some good chats. So hopefully we don't have to have too many good chats about hurricanes that are threatening us. So, all right, here we are. Let's take a look at our 7-day forecast. Also, thankfully, no tropics to deal with these next couple of days. Thank God for that. Blah. All right. A couple of showers and storms maybe on Sunday. Otherwise, we're good to go. All right. Oh, I see everybody liked it. I love that. Look at it. Everybody. Look at that. All right. Kids have prom this weekend. How's it looking? Ethan's asking. Looks pretty good. I mean, hot, but no tropics. That's always good. Jad says that was really interesting. Thank you. Katie, love the show. Thank you. Kelly, they want to know about your shirt. Oh, it's a Citronaut. It's a UCF Citronaut shirt. I don't have any blue. I'm actually wearing it for the magic, but it's the blue shirt that I have. So it just is what it is. Yeah, that was a fun conversation, Mindy says. I agree. He was fun. Yeah, listen, there's, weather is something that should be loved by everybody. Gina, you're a gracious host. Listen, we're all trying to do the same thing. Everybody, cosmonaut, citronaut, they're not the same thing, Kelly. One is a Russian astronaut. One is a mascot for UCF. We're all trying to do the same thing, just nerd out on weather. So, yeah. Love it. All right, people. I'm going to go see Mom. Enjoy today. Mostly dry. And, just enjoy today. It's a mostly dry forecast. A couple of storms in on Sunday. Storm here or there next couple of days. But next week is going to be gross hot. Gross hot. Blech. All right. Be good. I've always loved weather, but you have made me a nerd. I love it. Belinda. Mickey, it finally happened. Been a long time coming having Mike on. Well, and he'll be popping in from time. He always does. He always pops in, and it's always fun. So, all right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you all for hanging out for Coffee Talk, and join him. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock sharp. Keep the tropics nice and quiet, hopefully. Be good, y'all.